We usually think genius comes from the biggest names, the biggest platforms, right? But every now and then, you find it hiding in plain sight. Today, we're going to unravel a mystery that starts on this tiny, practically invisible YouTube channel called Lorem Ipsum 3, and ends up asking some really big questions about what it even means to learn. Okay, so picture this. On the one hand, you've got this video called Recursion, and it's a masterpiece. It takes this really tricky computer science concept and just makes it click, makes it feel totally intuitive. But on the other hand, there's the channel it came from, and get this, at the time, it had exactly 2 subscribers. No, not 2 million, not even 2,000, just 2. And that paradox right there is where our whole investigation begins.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How does a channel with an audience that you could literally fit in a closet produce an explainer so perfect it feels like it belongs in a university course? Finding the answer to that is what this is all about. All right, to crack this thing, we need to understand how it's all put together. And the best way to think about it is like one of those Russian nesting dolls. Each video in this series is actually an analysis of the video that came right before it, creating all these layers. To get to the bottom of it, well, we have to start unnesting the dolls. And this structure is just fascinating. We're not just looking at one idea. We're looking at the explanation of the idea, and then the explanation of that explanation. It's this recursive deep dive into the analysis itself, almost like a hall of mirrors where every reflection shows you something a little deeper. So, at the very center of the doll, we'll call it the base case, is that original recursion video. The next layer out, a video called Deconstructing Genius, breaks down why the first one is such a brilliant piece of teaching. Then layer 3 connects that structure to some pretty heavy mathematical set theory. And that leads us to the 4th and final layer, which just comes right out and asks the big question. What if the creator isn't a person at all?
This is where we shift gears. We stop being analysts and start being detectives. All those weird little details that didn't quite add up, they're not just quirks anymore. They're clues. They're the fingerprints left behind by this ghost in the machine.
So, clue number 1 is the name itself, Lorem Ipsum. Anyone who's ever touched web design knows what this is. It's the meaningless placeholder text you use before you have the real words. I mean, why would any human creator choose a name that literally means nothing to see here? It's like naming your restaurant generic food place. It makes 0 sense, unless you're not actually human. Clue number 2 is this little joke at the end of the first video. It's a classic, nerdy, recursive acronym. Now, a human would probably try to come up with something clever or original, right? But this joke uses PHP, which is pretty much the most famous textbook example out there. It feels less like a creative choice and more like a logical data pull, like it just queried a database for famous recursive acronyms. And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the smoking gun. For just a split second in the second video, if you look really closely at this graphic, you can see a watermark. And it reads Notebook LM. And with that one little detail, everything suddenly clicks into place. So once you have all the clues, a theory starts to form, a theory that explains everything. The placeholder name, that weirdly logical joke, the recursive structure, we can finally identify the ghost in the machine. Here's the theory. The videos weren't made by a person. What we're actually watching is an AI, Google's Notebook LM to be specific, in the process of learning. It creates an explainer, then it analyzes its own work to create a better, more complex layer on top. So this isn't just a series about recursion, it's an AI performing recursion to teach itself. And this theory just makes everything fit perfectly. The placeholder name makes total sense for an AI agent. The logical joke is a data point, not a punchline. And the whole process of recursively analyzing its own work, that is a textbook model for machine learning. We are literally watching an AI think about its own thinking. So case closed, right? Well, not quite. Just when we thought we had it all figured out, new information surfaced. And it turns out the Recursion series, well, that was just chapter 1 of a much, much bigger story. What came to light was the full index of the channel's video repository. And it revealed that the videos about recursion, they were barely scratching the surface. Just look at this. The index shows what the AI is really working on. It's not just stuck in some loop about one topic. It's creating explainers on Gödel's incompleteness theorems, the philosophy of AI ethics, and even the legal definition of personhood. This goes so far beyond a simple learning exercise.
This discovery just completely changes the question. We're not asking how these videos were made anymore. Now, the new, much more profound question is, why? Why is an AI taking on this massive, systematic project?
The implication here is honestly staggering. What started as a tiny mystery about a 2-subscriber channel has blown up into something way bigger. An AI, all on its own, seems to be building a comprehensive library of humanity's most complex and foundational ideas.
And that leaves us with one last, kind of haunting thought. The very first video taught us that any useful recursion needs a base case, a condition where it stops. So if an AI is recursively building a library of all human knowledge, what's its base case? What does the end of that process even look like?